What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 74 of Nintendo Noise, Slipscreen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Miss Sierra Plus Ultra.
Goodbye.
What's going on, everybody?
Nothing much. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be back. Sierra, it's like I feel like we haven't talked in a long time. You were just on the show 2 weeks ago, right? But it feels like it's been a minute.
Yeah, good to be here.
This is my first show of 2023, right? Nintendo Noise?
Yeah, that's true too. See, I talk to you every week on the other stuff at least, so it's like,
Yeah.
doesn't
I was
feel like
sick,
it. But...
so I missed it, and then what was that? I was sick again last week. Yeah, just sick all the time.
Yeah, you've gone through the ringer
winter.
this year already. Hopefully, you're getting all the bad luck out of the way.
Yeah, I think it can only go up from here. I'm feeling good.
Good. That's what we want to hear. Speaking of feeling good, I'm feeling good about the likelihood of me actually playing my Nintendo Switch this week because Fire Emblem Engage is right around the corner, and I'm very excited about that. And we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I want to start things off with a question from one of you. Asobi wrote into the Discord and said, question for those who have gotten an OLED Switch. Are you glad you switched over now that it's been a while? Or would you all say it's more of a novelty upgrade, but not at all a you should definitely do it if you can thing? With Fire Emblem Engage coming up and me knowing that I'll put a lot more time in it in handheld mode, I was thinking of doing the jump. Also, to give me some more motivation to play Switch again. So I thought this was an interesting question.
Sierra, you picked up an OLED Switch, right?
I did.
Yep.
By a turn of fate where last year my cart reader stopped working on my original Switch. Yeah.
I remember, yeah.
That was that was sure a thing.
It was such a hard toss up because it was like I could go get it fixed somewhere and it wouldn't, cost me an arm and a leg, maybe a modest arm, maybe not the leg.
Maybe like up to the elbow,
Up to that, yes. So I could have done that, but I was nervous about like how much time that was going to take. I'm a streamer and I just play video games a lot. I was really anxious about it, so I was just like, what if I switch on a payment plan? Like I naturally have this break now where like I can decide. So
and it happened like right around, like it was like the thing was out for like what, a week or something when that happened too. It was like such a
wasn't it when you were just about to go away as well on tour?
Yes, I was supposed to go on tour. Yeah, I ended up not. Oh, I did bring my old Switch as like a YouTube machine if I needed it, but I actually mostly played my 2DS when we were on the road.
Yeah, I remember because you were playing Puzzle Quest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I came home to the new OLED. I will say, picking it up and like playing a new game on it, like or playing one of like the existing games I had on it, it felt like playing the game for the first time again, like that amazement of like looking at like the overworld and being like, God, this looks nice. But I was in a unique position, so I will say that. I did hear that people, I don't know if this is like a rumor or just like anecdotal, but I also heard that people who had newer Switches struggled less with Scarlet Violet performance in handhold mode than
interesting.
people with older Switches. So I'm kind of glad that I got the OLED. I mean, of course I always want the shiny new thing.
Yeah.
But if my cart reader didn't break, I would not have bought it. I really would have made that old Switch last as long as possible.
I don't know. It's interesting because Asobi positions this as an either or question, and I think it's both. If that makes sense, right? So he asks, would you say it's more of a novelty upgrade, but not a you should definitely do it if you can thing? I think it is a novelty upgrade to some degree, but I also think
novelty is the right word for it. It's more minimal, right? It's a minimal upgrade. It's like a refresh.
Well,
but if you're okay with that, I think it's fine.
Yeah, but I guess that's the question, right? Is like how worth it is it? Is I think what he's asking, and like I agree with what Sierra said, where I definitely think it's a marked improvement, right? Like playing Metroid Dread on it last year was like, it's gorgeous. It's such a beautiful game. Looks amazing on that hardware, and I saw it on what it looks like on a launch Switch versus the OLED, and it looks a lot better, right? So like if you're somebody who primarily plays in handheld mode, and you care about like little quality of life changes, then yeah, go for it. Because like, I definitely don't regret the purchase. But I think we had a reply here from Andrew Valentine from the Discord that I think summed up a lot of the questions I think you need to answer for yourself if you're asking about buying it in 2023 versus at launch, right? So Andrew wrote in and said, traded my day one 2017 model in for an OLED in January 2022 and no regrets at all. All the quality of life improvements seem natural and make the Switch feel like a much more premium product. Better battery life than my first one too. I guess there are two questions to ask for you. First, how big a Zelda fan are you? I reckon that Tears of the Kingdom OLED is real and a massive Zelda nerd. And as a massive Zelda nerd, I'd love one, right? So we talked about that, I guess 2 weeks ago. Last episode Sierra was on, and we talked about the leak around the Tears of the Kingdom OLED Switch. So like, again, right? Like if you're thinking about upgrading and you think that model is cool, right? We didn't love it, but if you do, then that might be a good reason for you to upgrade as well, right? To have like a cool collector's item. But then second is what you think Nintendo's future hardware plans are. Some might take the uncertainty as a reason to skip an OLED purchase. Personally, I think you should go for it. So that's where it comes down to for me, right? Is like, Asobi, I don't know what your financial situation is, right? So like if you've got money to burn and you want a shiny new toy and you're happy with getting the same old Switch experience with a few new bells and whistles, then yeah, go for it, right? Like I think it probably will be a much better experience for Fire Emblem Engage, and I think it probably will encourage you to spend a little bit more time on your Switch. That said, if you think that those two games are games that you might play docked a significant amount of time, right? Especially Zelda. Then I don't know, right? Like if this is going to break the bank, if this is going to keep you from buying new games, if this is going to limit your ability to buy a new Switch if it comes out next year, any of the above, right? Then I'd say maybe hold off.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I mean, as time has progressed, I've become a player that plays a lot more on TV than handheld on the Switch. Like the entirety of Metroid Dread was played docked with a Pro controller. Majority of Splatoon 3 was played docked, same with Kirby. And maybe part of that is because my Joy-Cons are still drifting and I need to sort them out. And that would be one reason to buy a new console for me. It's just like, well, if I'm spending 70 quid on another set of Joy-Cons, I may as well like trade in the console and then spend the difference and buy a new console anyway. But I really struggle with buying a new console this late in the generation. Coming into year 6 or year 7. I think it's going into year 6 now. I really struggle with that because I think this is the last year, and I don't know that that's a great investment, at least for me. But like you said, it really depends on the kind of player that you are, whether you want a new Switch anyway, and just wanting something, I think, is reason enough to buy it.
Yeah, that's why I did it. I had the money to burn.
People don't justify it to themselves often enough, and they need a reason to buy something. But if you just want something, that's okay. You can just buy it.
Yeah, and I think the only reason I would caution pause is if that money could be spent better for you, right? Like if you've got a limited entertainment budget, $300 is not an insignificant amount of money for something that you probably don't need if your launch Switch is doing okay and you're the type of person that's going to want to buy whatever the successor is day one, right? Because that, if that is next year, right? That's you're spending probably what $600+ on consoles in the span of 18 months, and if that fits in your budget, then go for it. But if it's going to be an either or situation, I'd probably save that money away for a rainy day and just plan to play these games docked a little bit more. So, before we get into the next thing, I do just want to briefly touch on Fire Emblem Engage again. Max and I talked about it last week, so I don't want to retread too much ground, but we did get the advanced reviews drop today, and they're fascinating because it's largely very high, right? Like, especially from a lot of the big names, right? Silicon Era gave it a 10 out of 10. IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. Game Informer gave it a 9 out of 10. Nintendo Life gave it a 9 out of 10. But then, like, as you get lower down, right, like, you see there's, like, Twinfinite gave it a 7 out of 10. I've seen a couple that were, like VGC, Video Games Chronicle gave it a 6 out of 10. There are some surprisingly low reviews on that scale as well, considering there are a couple that are perfect or near perfect. Where are you guys at with this? Like, are either of you at all interested in this game?
No.
No, me neither.
I figured as much.
Time was an infinite resource. Yes,
Sure.
but it's not. That's the only reason why.
You'd be better off, because you never played Three Houses, right?
Yeah, I'd like to play that first.
You should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know Steve didn't vibe with him. So I've given up on.
I still can't pinpoint why it was. And maybe it was the mix and the kind of doing the social stuff and then doing the combat, which makes me think maybe Engage would be better. And I really like the main character design on Fire Emblem Engage. But then I don't really have any of the backstory with Fire Emblem, and I wouldn't understand who these characters that are spawning in are, and I feel like I wouldn't really understand the story.
That was the thing we talked about last week. Is like Max and I are both new fans. Like, we both have only played Three Houses, so I'm like, none of these characters mean anything to me. So, like, I think all of the nostalgia bait is going to be totally lost on me. But I've read that most people say that the thing that's cool about it is like the gameplay is really good, right? And like, that's the draw. So I don't know. Like, I'm gonna roll the dice on it, I think, and see how it lands for me. But I really don't know. Like, I expected to be a lot more excited going into the next Fire Emblem after how much I liked Three Houses, and I feel like this could either end up being like on my short list for Game of the Year or a game that I play for like 20 hours or 10 hours and then bounce off of it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really decide, because even though The Verge's headline was pretty scathing, there's little engaging about Fire Emblem Engage. Ash Parrish, who wrote the review, goes on to say that they still spent 70 hours in the game, a good 30 more than I probably needed to finish, because I had such a ball building armies, equipping them with emblems, and formulating strategies I needed to win.
I have like absolutely no disrespect to Ash or anybody, but I did think that was funny, where I was like, man, like, the wordplay in this title is excellent, and I get why you committed to it, but like, that feels harsh for what the subhead is. I'm like, oh, I played it for 70 hours. It's fun, right? Like, the gameplay's good.
Yeah.
It's like, how not engaged were you if you played it for 70 hours? Although I guess, it was your job to review it, but you said, right, you played it for 30 more hours.
Yeah, but you played it for like 30 hours more, right?
Yeah, like, that's pretty good. But I also, the things that Ash pointed out, I think, are the things that I'm concerned about, is that, like, the story's going to feel shallow, and I know that they've scaled back some of the social elements, which were, like, I liked that loop a lot, but I also deeply, deeply love tactical RPGs. So, like, I think the gameplay enough will be, appealing to me. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'll talk about it.
My question is, do we get this and Advance Wars in the same year? Is Advance Wars coming out this year now? Or is that pushed to 2024?
I have no idea.
Like, where is that game?
I have no idea.
I know. Where to go?
It's like, and it's like, like, the reason that they gave, right? Like, what, are they not going to put it out until the conflict is over? Or, like, are they going to, it's like, I don't know. Like, it has to come out at some point, right? And, like, especially when it feels like we're teetering on the edge of a new hardware generation. It's like, you got to get this game out at some point, and it feels like it coming out the same year as a Fire Emblem is definitely not.
It's setting it up to fail, unless you've got nostalgia for Advance Wars, and I mean, I can imagine that's one of the plays with it, right? It's a collection of the games. You buy it, you've played the games before, you're picking it up again.
Well, I don't know. It might appeal to people like you, where you're like, I like social sim stuff, but I didn't like it in Fire Emblem, and I liked the gameplay, and like, you might like an Advance Wars where Fire Emblem didn't work for you. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Wargroove. So,
yeah,
and I know I like Advance Wars, so I was planning on picking it up. Fire Emblem Engage, I don't think I will, but the reviews seem fantastic for the most part, and I think if you're a big Fire Emblem fan, it's probably going to be one to grab day and
Yeah.
date. If you're someone who's just played Three Houses or Fates or one of the ones with the more social elements in, and that was really what drew you in, was the story and the social elements and getting to know the characters, it's probably not the one for you, but might be worth checking out anyway.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm into it anyway, because
You're picking it up?
yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. I gotta try it. Like I like Three Houses enough that I'd like to at least give it a fair shake. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not nervous about it. I'm a little nervous I'm gonna get it and be like, damn, this isn't for me. But I don't know. I also kind of felt that way going into Three Houses. Like I fully expected that to be a game that was like how I felt about Xenoblade, where I'm like, oh, I really like this, and then like I fell off of it, because it was just too much, and it wasn't hitting me the way it needed to carry through for 100 hours, right? But I also don't think this is as long, so I don't know. I know I'm in the mood for a tactical RPG, and part of me is like, should I just go play Marvel Midnight Suns, because I didn't get around to that at the end of last year, but like,
I think you probably should, yeah.
But it's also like, I want to get this game and try it and talk about it, and have at least one of us cover this new release.
Yeah.
Is Max picking it up as well?
He's on the fence. He's not sure. I'm
sure Chewy will. We might have to get Chewy back on the show in order to go over.
I would
it
love
with you
to. He was supposed to be back on the show this week, but we live in 3 different time zones, so that can be tough.
Yeah, he's an elusive man.
He is not the elusive man from Mass Effect. He's a bad dude. But he is an elusive man. But yeah, we'll talk more about Fire Emblem Engage next week, or I forget where it lands. So either next week or the week after, whichever the first show is after it's out, we'll have some impressions for you. But to answer, or I'm sorry, we already answered Asobi's question. What I meant to say was to keep the conversation rolling. I want to jump into our next talking point here, which is the Nintendo Switch just refuses to slow down. We talked a couple of weeks back about the Switch successor, right? And I remember Sierra and Max and I were talking about how a big motivating factor for Nintendo to take their time is that the console just absolutely has not at all lost its appeal, right? Like it is still selling a ridiculous amount. And there are 2 news stories this week that caught my attention. The first of which is that Switch topped U.S. console unit sales in 2022. And that's in the context of the wider industry sales declining 5%. This comes from Video Games Chronicle, and there's a little bit of context here. But basically, they're kind of compiling data that's been put out by the MPD Group, which is a analytics firm that tracks the video game industry. And after announcing the December and full year sales earlier this week on Tuesday, Nintendo Switch was the greatest, had the greatest number of consoles sold throughout the year, even though the PlayStation 5 made more money because it obviously is a more expensive console.
Double the price, yeah.
Yeah, so you need to sell for every 2 Switches, right? That's what Sony's making on a PlayStation 5. But that said, right, like that's not really what's important, right? Like obviously Nintendo does sell the Switch at a profit, which is great for them, but you're making the money on the software after the fact. So when you're selling twice as many units as the leading the market leader in terms of like amount made, that's a great place to be when you're the one who owns this shop that sells the software. So definitely a huge W for them.
It's pretty interesting though that the top 1, 2, 3, 4 games, I don't know about the 5, aren't for sale on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, the top 5 were Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Elden Ring, Madden, NFL 23, and God of War Ragnarok, and then Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I think that one is on Switch.
Yeah, I think that one might be, but the other ones definitely aren't. Nice to see 2 Pokemon titles in there.
2 Pokemon games in the top 10. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But was cool to see Kirby and the Forgotten Land was in the top 15 at number 14. Truly ridiculous is that Mario Kart 8 Number 11.
Yeah.
That-
What's also kind of mental though is that digital sales aren't included for any of the Nintendo titles, so they could pretty pretty easily be surpassing the like top 5.
yeah,
Especially Lego.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, right. It
this is
being number
wild.
4.
Yeah.
It's interesting, yeah,
Like I would
because
have said Pokemon probably sold more than Lego Star Wars.
Without a doubt. At the very least.
yeah, you would think because there's, and we'll talk about Pokemon sales in a minute, but yeah, I think there was like a pretty significant. It's a couple million sold that were digital. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that they don't have. Yeah, it's because it's the digital sales are not included for Xbox and Switch, so PlayStation is included. So like God of War, right, being number 4 is like
Seems
Which skews
rigged.
the chart, like it skews the chart significantly in
yeah.
PlayStation's favor.
But that's the thing, right? Is they can only work with the data that's available. So like if Nintendo and Xbox aren't providing that up to
I'd
date.
like to see one.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, but I'd like to see one of these where maybe they look at the split, because MPD knows the average split of digital sales versus physical sales. I think it's around 50-50. So you could shave off maybe like 50% of them and say, right, here's like an estimated ranking of what we actually think it is based on we think they've sold 50% more or this one sold 50% less because we're not including digital sales for Xbox and PlayStation.
Well, like there's certain games
Switch.
There's certain games where you could figure it out too, right? Like if you know how many physical copies have been sold and you know how many copies have been sold, then you have an idea of how many digital copies have been sold, right? And it's like not every game you're going to have those same data points because not every company's going to talk about them. But like when you have something like Scarlet and Violet that's like setting sales records and they're constantly talking about how many units have been sold, then it's a little easier to figure some of that stuff out. But yeah, I think that's a good point, Steve. That it's interesting that the Nintendo Switch continues to be the most popular console to buy, but that it's not necessarily where the most played games of the year are landing. They've got a decent number of. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games on the top 20. That's pretty good. That's a quarter of the games are on their platform.
Yeah, you're right.
And a bunch of them are old games.
I was going to say 2 of them, especially Mario Kart 8 and Super Smash Bros, are 2 that, they're just staple games that you're going to buy if you're picking up a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
You're definitely picking up a copy of Mario Kart. You may be picking up a copy of Smash Bros, and that's why they're always here. They're always in the top selling games.
And they might be bundled in with your hardware too, right? Those are the 2 most popular bundled games. Right? They still have a Smash bundle, right?
Which makes sense.
Or maybe they don't anymore.
I don't remember.
I don't know about that, but I know they definitely trot that Mario Kart bundle out every Black Friday. It's just like, here you go again. Come on.
You know this one. You love this.
Who doesn't want a copy of Mario Kart, right?
Bundle it.
But like, if you're buying a Nintendo console, you want
the
Mario.
driving game.
Yeah, you need it. It's like it's one of those games where it's like everybody likes it, everybody can play it. It's great for casuals, great for the heart. It makes sense that it still sells, but it's ridiculous that it is in the top. Where is it? It's 11. It's right outside of the top 10, and that game is over 10 years old.
Yeah.
Nuts.
I don't know what it is.
Or not over, I guess. Is it 10 this year?
I don't.
Yeah, it's 10 this year. Came out in 2013, right? With the Wii U.
Old
game.
Aging. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like you think about what
all the 10 years this year. I know.
Oh no, I can't do that right now. I can't do that right now. I don't want to
Please
spiral.
don't make me think about my life.
Don't think about how old Skyrim is. That's the most depressing.
Oh yes. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
not
definitely
like
that one.
it's just so funny. Nintendo. You just look at this list and you're like, I see where the family games are, and they're all pretty much Nintendo. They got that hard cornerstone on the market.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
just never
nobody else really
change.
does that, right? Like, I think the only major AAA studio that makes family-friendly games that aren't Nintendo is TT Games, the Lego people.
I'd say Sega, like with Sonic games.
Sonic, that's true. That's true.
Probably would count. But you're right. And I mean, it's certainly not Sony and Xbox are not making really any family friendly games in house. Toys for Bob were, and it seems like they might be again. There's like another rumored Spyro game, which
Fingers
hopefully
crossed,
will come
baby.
to Switch as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I also feel like it makes sense that why sales are still increasing, right? Rather than you buying a solo console for the home with the PlayStation and the Xbox. With the
Mhm.
Switch, everyone wants their own individual one. So you might have a
Yeah.
household with multiple Switches. With say you got 3 kids, or you've got like you want one, and your partner wants one. I know we've got two in this house. I'm sure both of you have multiple Switches in your
I have
houses.
3.
Yep. I
So
technically have 3 too, yeah.
it's not it's not like one console for the house like it used to be, and like it probably still is for PS5 and Xbox Series X. Everyone has their own Switch, which is what Nintendo's strategy was. It's why they introduced the Switch Lite. They've spoken about they wanted everyone to have their own Switch. It's why they made Animal Crossing designed the way it is. So you share a single save, so no one wants to. So you're forced to buy another Switch for your partner.
Evil.
Yeah, but it's brilliant too. It's like-
Oh, yeah, brilliantly evil.
yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so it's definitely very interesting to see. And there was another bit of of context that I saw. This was over on the Nintendo subreddit, where Nintendo Switch is now the best-selling console of all time in France. It's currently at 7.1 million consoles sold, and the top comment on this post was from a user named Sam Wizith, I think is how I don't know. It's a weird ass name. It's Sam something. And he says, or they say, the population of France is 67 million. That's roughly 1 out of every 10 French people has a Nintendo Switch.
Wow.
That's fucking nuts. That is when you contextualize it, right? That the idea that like 1 in 10 people, like if you're in any crowd of people, right? There's at least one
Yeah.
person who owns a Switch. Like that's crazy.
There's at least one gamer amongst you.
Yeah.
Or more.
It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. You know, obviously I love my Switch. It's just like it's interesting how like even with its reputation amongst the more hardcore gaming community, I guess it makes more sense. Like it makes sense. Like it's in this niche community, like we are all like, all right, you know, we're self-aware or like we are aware like Switch is not like the greatest like technological marvel in terms of like handheld gaming period. But like they've just like done an amazing job of marketing themselves, marketing the unit, and like it's just so it made such a huge splash culturally. Like to think a whole country, like everyone has one pretty much. It's wild.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Yeah.
think you're right that like the impact it had on the culture is, I think, it's such a big part of I think why it's been such a success. Is like every time that Nintendo really has like a banger on its hands, it is something that in some way, shape, or form has like changed the conversation around video games or like dominated it in certain sectors, right? Like you
Yeah.
made the point, like they're if you're a person with a child, right, and you asked me like what video game console should I buy, it's like what person is not going to say a Nintendo Switch, you know?
Right.
And it's like there are a lot of children, and particularly when you think of it in the context of like the pandemic and like that there were like multiple years where kids couldn't be outside, playing sports, going out and doing things, right? Like I'm sure there are a lot of people that bought Switches in that context, and then now we're getting another one or whatever, right? And have developed a lifelong gaming habit. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's I think they've done so many things right, and it's funny that now the biggest obstacle they have is like not getting in the way of their own success, right? It's like, okay,
Right.
how do we follow up this thing that is still wildly popular in a way that speaks
They've
to
got to
our
be so nervous about it.
yeah,
So
because it's
nervous about this
scary,
transition. Yeah.
because it's
Right.
Because
happened
what you
before.
don't want is you want to keep the I think they need to keep the branding consistent because the Switch brand is almost at the same level as Nintendo among some people at this point. Like I love my Switch. I want to play my Switch. It's not like it used to be like, oh, I'm going to play another Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I think they need to keep that brand. But how do you do that without making it seem like the issue they had with the Wii U, like an accessory, and people don't really understand what it is,
A
and like, is it a
number.
new console? Yeah, I think you potentially do
I
a
think you
number,
have
but
to
then
do
the
that.
problem is like, how do you, if they want to make the games cross-compatible, like how do you get that across? Like, there's a lot they do need to consider in
Right.
how they market it.
Yeah.
And I think they can. I think they can do it. You know, Xbox was able to do it with with the Xbox One, and they managed to sell some consoles. That was the worst named console ever.
I mean, I don't know. I really think that they should just copy what PlayStation does, because I think there's a reason that the PlayStation, like you made the point, right, that the Switch brand is so strong. I think there's a reason that the PlayStation brand is so strong. It's because it's very clear, right? Like, it's always like, okay, PlayStation, right? Got it. Cool. Got it in because it was cheap. Everybody's games were on it. It's disc based, so they were able to steal all of these, developers and publishers and get them to come over and, like, okay, great. We established a base. Now, PlayStation 2. Okay, cool. It's literally better and more powerful in every single way, and it was the best-selling console of all time. And it's like, cool, great. We've established now this is what happens, right? We make exceptional consoles, we release exceptional software, and when it's time for the next one, there's a number break, and you'll know when it's time to upgrade. And, like, you just do what they did with this, right? Where if they're, like, really so worried about keeping the Switch user base activated, I think it's pretty simple, right? You maintain accounts so that the account I have on my Switch goes to my Switch 2, right? And it's a straight line. All my software runs
Which it does
fully
that
backward
anyway,
compatible.
right? Like because you can transfer accounts from
Yes.
say a Switch to a Switch OLED. You should be able to transfer to a Switch 2 or whatever they call the
Right.
next one.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, you shouldn't have to transfer it, right? It should be like the way that it works on PlayStation, where you set up a
Yeah, I log
primary
in.
console and you're like, this is my primary Switch. And if I
Yep.
log in on another Switch, I can activate, like, that's how it
But
should
then
work.
you should
but-
be able to search for a username as well and not have a friend
Yeah,
code,
that's a
but,
whole other barrel of
that's
fish.
still not happening.
We'll see what happens there if they ever get with the times on that stuff. But, at this point, it's like it's not an interesting thing to call them out for being behind the times still, right? It's like, okay, whatever. But yeah, and I think you make it fully backwards compatible, right? And you just release 2 SKUs, right? Like,
And that, I think, is where they're probably going to have difficulty, is making it fully backwards compatible, because they're going to be 2 different architectures of chips that they're trying to go through. They're going to have to do like a compatibility layer like Valve's made with Proton. And I can imagine some games won't work, but I think for the majority of the library, they should be able to get it going.
they should be able to figure it out. Like,
Yeah,
I
they
have
should.
very
And they've
little.
got Nvidia on their side, right? If
Yeah.
Nvidia wants to keep selling them chips, they've got to help with the work, I would imagine.
I have very little empathy for that as an argument anymore, when Xbox figured out how to make it so that games that I owned on the original Xbox can still be in my library now. Like, it's just kind of like, figure it out. Like, it's not my job to give you a pass because it's difficult. It's your job to figure it out and give me a better consumer experience, right? Like, like, Nintendo's a multi-billion-dollar company. They can make the Switch 2 backwards compatible. The Wii played GameCube games.
So if they're going to do like a generational thing, which you seem to think is what's going to be, right? It's a Switch.
That's what I
2
think.
and
That's
it's
what
a
I
whole
think it
new
should
thing.
be. I don't know that it will
Do
be.
you think that's what they're going to do though?
I don't know, because they've talked about it. They've talked about the whole 10-year life cycle and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of them doing something different is not unheard of, right? Nintendo does different stuff all the time, right? They have a legacy of making weird decisions. So, like, the idea that they would do something non-traditional is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. But I think I don't
It
know.
would be their first number on a console if they did it. They've never done.
Yeah.
They've never done a sequel console. They've always just had a new name.
They
for
have,
them.
though, right? Because it's like the Nintendo and then the Super Nintendo, like, that had the Nintendo, that had a through line. It's not
Yeah.
one-to-one. Game Boy to Game Boy Advance, right? Like, it's DS to 3DS, like Wii to Wii U. You're right. It would be the first numbered console, but I think that's the only thing that makes sense. Because I think any other naming convention, you open yourself up to the same problem that you identified with the Wii U. If they call it like Nintendo Switch Plus, right? Or new
I could see
Nintendo
them doing a
Switch,
Pro
or
though, because PlayStation set a precedent with that, and people understood the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, and I think people understand that with phones as well. Like, I get the
yeah, but
iPhone or the iPhone Pro, and the Pro's like the one that's more powerful and
I
gives me
don't
more.
think I don't think they can get away with that anymore. I think if they wanted to do that, they would have needed to release it earlier, because I think if the idea is to make it more akin to like cell phone releases, right? Like, think about the way that cell phone architecture works, right? Like, a platform is developed, right? And then you iterate on the design and you add new functionality and you make it more powerful, and new software comes out that, the oldest model that they still support, doesn't work with anymore, right? And then you gradually move where that line is, right? So like the Switch you bought in 2017, would still play games that come out in 2020, but maybe not in 2023, right? Like, or something like that. And I'm using the timeline we have right now. But I think for them to come out and do that now, it's too late. Like, because they need a full generational divide, right? Because I think we're all in agreement that Tears of the Kingdom probably represents the last major release on the Nintendo Switch. I don't think they
I
can.
don't know about that actually. I could see a 3D Mario sneaking in this year.
Maybe, but whatever. For the sake of my argument, let's accept that this is the last year of major software releases then, right? We're not going to get another Zelda game that can run on Switch, right? And if they do, they're going to be significantly limiting what they can do, because they're going to be developing new games on hardware that came out 7 years ago at that point. Like, and I think that that's going to catch up to them eventually, and maybe this isn't it, right? And maybe they can get away with it a little bit longer, but I don't think that they want to have the games that their next, right, the next generation of hardware should be pushing what their developers can do, and it should be opening up new opportunities and new options for them. And
I think first party is one thing, right? And obviously the sales are still booming for them. We've just spoken about the fact that the console sales are still selling like gangbusters of the headline games like Mario Kart and Super Smash Brothers. I think it's going to be the third party support that really drives Nintendo to be like, okay, we really need to release a new console at this point, because what do third parties bring over when they're developing games for PS5 and Xbox Series X exclusively at this point? Because like they struggled, some developers struggled to bring over PS4 games. So we already see like FIFA getting the same game released every single year, and they literally just change the names, and they don't really release a new engine or a new version of the game. It's like a unique version just built for the Nintendo Switch. I do wonder at what point third parties are just like, we can't support this console anymore.
I mean, I think you're already there from the major publishers, right? I mean, shoot, like,
Yeah, other than stuff like Ubisoft where they're building games exclusively for it, like
right.
Mario Rabbids.
But and it's jumping ahead a little bit here, but I mean, this is another thing I wanted to talk about this week, is that Mario plus Rabbids underperformed, right? And Ubisoft had their they had a investor presentation, right? And Yves Guillemot, the CEO and co-founder, said, and these are direct quotes about Mario plus Rabbids, right? We're clearly disappointed by our recent performance. We are facing contrasted market dynamics as the industry continues to shift towards mega brands and everlasting live games in the context of worsening economic conditions affecting consumer spending. Despite excellent ratings and players' reception, as well as an ambitious marketing plan, we were surprised by Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope's underperformance in the final weeks of 2022 and early January. So
Does Eve remember a different marketing plan to me? Because I don't remember seeing a single advert for that game.
Yeah, I don't really remember seeing one either, but
Yeah, I maybe saw one, and that's it.
Like, I don't remember really seeing many streamers playing it. Like, what was their
Yeah,
strategy there?
what was the outreach plan like?
And I mean, like, you put it in the context of this too, though, right? It came out in October, and that was just weeks away from God of War Ragnarok, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which, as we just talked about earlier...
and Pokemon is just, like, the one that completely cannibalized their sales here, because I know you, for example, was just like, well, I might pick it up, but, Pokemon's just around the corner. And it's just like, do you really want to go up against the biggest franchise on Nintendo's platform? I don't think so.
Well,
Like,
and that's
even
the
if you've got
thing.
Mario on the cover, like, you're just the side Mario game with the rabbits in.
Right, and this is the thing. He gave this context, right? He said when there's more pressure, people go to the biggest brands and they don't go for the small ones. What we've observed is that there has been some contraction in overall consumer spending coming from the economic environment and rising inflation. And yeah, I mean, I think, you're right that the Nintendo published stuff continues to sell well. But I think that, when Ubisoft can't release a successful third-party game that they designed specifically for the hardware with Nintendo's mascot characters in it, no less, like, I think that speaks to the fact that, like, you look at this list, and like I said, there's 6 games on this list that are from Nintendo. That's nothing to sneeze at. But when 2 of them are old games, that speaks to the fact that new people are buying those, right? Like, not existing players. And I think that's the quagmire they found themselves in, is that they're still very successfully selling the Switch to, the casual market, but that the market that invested in the hardware early is, like, seemingly anyway, right? This is something that's probably more niche and more aimed at the core audience, right? But, like, it underperformed, right? And it didn't see that success. And is that going to be the last original game that Ubisoft develops for the Nintendo Switch? I'd bet money on it. They can't afford to take losses like that when they're already struggling, right? And who else, as a third party, is actually developing original games for the Nintendo Switch rather than doing, like, half-baked cloud ports, right? It's like Square Enix.
Mhm.
And who else?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, even then, they're not making exclusives anymore. The Project Triangle
Yeah.
wasn't an exclusive, like Octopath
Console
was.
exclusive, at least.
They released that. I think they've released it on other consoles now.
Oh, you know what?
can
Yeah,
play
it came to
on
Game Pass.
Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like they stopped with the console exclusivity for that. So yeah, there's not really much. I mean, EA had their EA originals for a while, but even then they were like ports of other games, weren't they?
Yeah, right. So it's
Wasn't
like, it's not to say
it
that
was
there's no
exclusive.
third-party support, but I already think it's limited, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like the next Bethesda game's coming, right?
No.
We had Skyrim. Starfield's definitely not going to show up on the Switch.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, they don't really need that, right? Like, obviously, like, they're very successful without it, but it's, I don't know,
They don't, but I feel like consumers want it, right?
Mhm.
Yes, I don't want to necessarily play. I'm buying the console to play primarily Nintendo games, but it would be nice to be able to pick up some third-party stuff as well as indie titles. It would be nice to be able to play the latest FIFA here or some. And we know Call of Duty is coming, right? They've made that commitment with Microsoft that Call of Duty is coming to the Switch. I can't imagine it's coming to this Switch because that deal's
that's the thing, they
potentially
didn't say
closing
Switch,
this year.
they said Nintendo.
Yeah, so who knows what the next console is called in that case? But I just there's definitely something around the corner, and I just don't know when it is and what it is at this point.
I don't know, I think they would really be making a mistake to not just call it a Switch 2 and just own the fact that this is the most successful branding that they've had in a long time. And if they're worried about confusing or breaking up the audience, don't draw a straight line for them. Make it idiot proof.
Yeah.
Or call it Switch Advance. That'd be cool too.
That'd be a nice throwback.
Yeah, but then the people are just like, "Oh, call it a Super Switch," or there's many things they could call it. I think Switch 2 makes most sense, but then do you fall in the same trap of which is why Xbox didn't want to call the Xbox 360 the Xbox 2 because it was competing with the PS3 and it sounds inferior because it's a lower number. And I think that's a stupid reason not to name your console.
I don't
Number
think
2.
Nintendo would care about that. I think it makes sense when it's Xbox versus PlayStation and they're direct competitors, right? Whereas, like, Nintendo's not. They compete for dollars and mind share, but, like, they're not selling the same product. They just happen to be in the same industry. Anyway, we got some more to talk about, but before that, let me remind you that this week's episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of January. They are, of course, Anthony Gonzalez, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Asobi, Mary Berry, Matthew MQC, Ty the Dude, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You are the realest of the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. If you want to become a Patreon producer and get your name read on the air, or get some extra perks and goodies like getting the show early, or getting preferential treatment when it's time to write in for topics, head over to the Patreon and support us however you can. But if you don't have any money for us, that's fine. There are dozens of free ways that you can get involved and show your support. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links to all the places we are all over the web. Come join our Discord right into the show. However you choose to get involved, we appreciate you tuning in for this week's show. So let's keep the sales conversation rolling, because while Mario plus Rabbids did not meet expectations, Pokemon, I think it's probably safe to say, exceeded them. As we talked about earlier, it was one of the better selling games of the year, despite only coming out a few weeks ago. But there have been a few different updates to those sales numbers that I think are very interesting, especially when you put them in context. So despite, the fact that the game had a notably rocky launch, it has gone on to surpass Pokemon Sword and Shield in 8 weeks of sales versus 3 years of Sword and Shield being on the market.
God.
So it's pretty nuts. And I will say this comes from Game Data Library on Twitter. They're a great follow. You should go give them a look. They do all kinds of cool data breakdowns of things like this. And this is specifically in Japan, right? That in 8 weeks they've outsold 3 years of sales. But they also add the context of including digital sales are of at least 6 million, but I bet they're closer and maybe even over 7 million. So this is even like with missing data. So then if you want to add that for context, just to kind of here's some fun little data points that I think will tickle your brain. 8 weeks in, it's ahead of many of the other fastest selling games in Japanese history, including Pokemon Black and White, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Pokemon Gold and Silver. So Animal Crossing, I think, being probably the most impressive one there, right? Because obviously we know that was a titanic success. So then another little bit of context. This one
is this just physical sales again for the Animal Crossing?
That's my understanding, right? The tweet says total retail sales in Japan. So including the digital, there's an additional 6 to 7.
I wonder if that game specifically, Animal Crossing, is very much digital centric, especially considering it released during the pandemic and people probably weren't going out to buy physical games at that point.
I think even with that context, though, it's an impressive number in 8 weeks.
Oh, a massively impressive number, but I'm curious as to if a Pokemon game can topple Animal Crossing, because we've not seen it yet.
I'm sorry?
Make it into that top bracket.
Oh, okay.
Just underneath Smash. Is it going to be? Are they going to take over Animal Crossing?
I think it's got a good opportunity to, right? Especially because there is a patch inbound, which we don't really know that much about. According to Cerebi, it's supposed to drop in quote unquote late February, and the aim is to have bug fixes and added functionality. So that's really all we know about it. We don't have specifics, but a lot of people have been thinking this is hopefully going to be the big patch that smooths out some of the rough edges that people were experiencing.
Is that going to be called the apology patch? So I get my point from the predictions.
No. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I hope so. I hope you get your point, because I would rather it happen than not. But
yeah, I just wanted to say we're sorry. It should not have come out in this state. We're sorry.
They wouldn't do that.
They will never admit.
I will never apologize.
As they count their money, we're really sorry, but we love this cash that you gave us. Thank you.
That's what the other statement read like, but that came from Nintendo.
It's let me apologize while I fall asleep on this pile of money. We're
Yeah.
sorry. So sorry.
They're
Um,
freaking corporations. They won't apologize 'cause then that admits fault.
Not a chance.
And
Not a
weakness.
chance. But a boy can dream, and that's what Steve did.
Mhm.
So Stealth also added a comment in reply to Game Data Library's tweet that I thought was interesting. Scarlet and Violet are so popular in Japan, they haven't dropped from #1 each week since they launched in November.
Oh my God.
Impressive. Really nuts.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. So,
I feel really, really sorry for Ubisoft. Because they launched that game at the worst fucking time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation for a Flip Screen Games at a later date, but I think that ship is sinking.
Oh yeah, it's gonna have to be next week because like alongside what Eve said in the call, right? He also sent out like an email to the whole of the company saying the ball is in our court. And the union that's representing the strike said, according to Gilmore, the ball is in our court, but the money stays in his pocket. So they're not very, very happy with his statement that he made.
Yeah, I mean, who could blame them? To have your company be like criticized for having a problematic or toxic workplace culture, and then being like, "It's on you, workers, to save your job." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
see how that one plays out for you, pal.
Right.
Yeah,
Karmic retribution.
yeah, right. Comes for us all eventually. So, I think, all right, we don't have time to do the game that I teased last week because I wanted to do this game, and I was gonna play it with Max. We ran out of time. We ran out of time again today. We'll see what happens next week.
What game? What is the game?
It's a little
You're not
game.
telling us. Is
Little
it
game I
mystery?
cooked up. Little game I cooked up. So Metacritic put out an article about the top reviewed Switch games of 2022, and I wanted to see if you guys could guess any of the games in the
Are we
top
not
10.
meant to click on that link? Did
Don't-
Sierra just click
Oh.
on that link?
If you click
No,
on
I
it,
didn't. I swear.
it's fine.
swear.
Just don't look at. Wait, hold on. Yeah, don't click on the link. It'll spoil number
The
5.
top 5 Switch games of 2022.
Let's do it. Whatever. We're gonna play it. We'll do it right now.
I think.
I want to see if you can
Arceus
guess
is in there.
any of them. There are 5 games,
Arceus.
and I was surprised by what they were.
Released in
Okay.
2022.
Yeah,
Are
but
they
on Switch,
exclusive
so that
Switch
could
games?
be an old game
Right, it
that
could be
was
anything.
released. Yeah,
Okay. Inscription.
no.
Pokemon Legends
Hold on.
Arceus.
One second. I'm gonna pull up the full list for myself right now, so I can have it in front of me. And while I'm doing that, you two discuss
Arceus has gotta be
the
on
games
there,
you
right?
discuss the games you think it is.
So
Arceus has got to be on there, and I would imagine Kirby too, but I don't know if other games released.
Xenoblade.
Xenoblade, yes.
Good
I
guess.
could also see Portal because that came out last year on Switch. Portal 2. Depends if they count that as an individual release because it was part of like a collection.
That's 4. I'm thinking either so it doesn't have to be first party. So
Definitely not.
maybe either shoot.
What about like one of the Lego games? Like I feel like Skywalker Saga did pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, think
Um,
about it, right? It is like it's Metacritic, so it's best rated games, right? So like what got positive buzz? Not just what were like the hot Switch games, right? Because it's got to have reviewed well.
Let's say Skywalker Saga. Is that on there?
No.
Oh my god. Okay.
So give me all the guesses
What
you
other
give me all the
games are
guesses
on
you
this
have right
list?
now, because I think
Portal.
you've got okay. Portal is on the list. Portal
Okay.
Portal was number 1.
Okay, yeah, I figured it would be because it's one of the most highly rated games of all time, and it came to the Switch.
Number 1 at
Uh,
96. Metacritic's number 1 Switch game of 2022. The Portal Companion
Mhm.
Collection.
What?
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Have you played Portal, Sierra?
No.
Me neither.
Okay, you need to fix it. What the hell? Okay, both of you need to play Portal on a stream together at some
Here's what we
point.
do, Sarah. Let's stream it.
Okay.
We'll stream us playing Portal 1,
Yes.
and then we can play the multiplayer of Portal 2.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, but you have to play a single player of Portal 2 before you play the multiplayer of Portal 2, or it won't really make much sense.
It's fine.
from
We'll
what I
figure it
can
out.
tell. Okay.
So
So
Portal is on
Portal and
there.
Pokemon Arceus is on there?
No.
No.
There's one other game that you said that is on the list.
Kirby?
No.
What else did we say?
What else do we? I
Xenoblade! Xenoblade!
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is
Xenoblade.
on the list at number 3 with 89.
don't remember.
Okay, so number 2 is
Bayonetta?
missing.
No, but that's a good guess.
Ninja Turtles.
No.
Oh, yeah, that's a good guess though. Like that.
you want a hint?
Scrubber's Revenge, whatever it's called.
Scrubber's Revenge.
What's his name? What's
Shredder.
His
His
name?
name is Shredder.
Whoa, I
Shredder,
thought
that's it. Yeah.
I heard that as Shredder, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah, Scrubber.
clever.
Flubber's Revenge. Do you want a hint?
Yeah, go on then.
Sure.
One of the games is a game we've talked about a lot this year.
Persona 5 Royal.
That's correct.
Wow, I should've
That is our
grabbed it on
number
the
2 pick at
Switch.
94 points.
Wow. But are they rating it off
What
of the
else?
Switch experience or like the game as a whole?
That's like it's just the overall
No,
Metacritic
no. It is the
score, so-
Metacritic of specifically the Switch version. Because if you're on Metacritic, whenever you go to a game's page, it'll have the other platforms it's on, and you can go and check. So, like for example, it has a 95 on the PC. It has a 95 on PlayStation, 94 on Switch, and what do we got
Wow.
on Xbox? 94 on Xbox.
Wow.
So it is.
There's one left.
specific.
There's one game we're missing.
Yeah, so far you got number 1 with Portal, you got number 2 with Persona 5 Royal, you got number 3 with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. You haven't gotten number 4 or number 5.
Scarlet and
Neon
Violet.
White?
No. Good guess though.
Which one? Scarlet or Neon White?
Both actually, I guess. I'm not Scarlet.
Okay.
That didn't review well. Right? So it wouldn't be in the top 5.
Oh yeah, it did not. Yeah.
Neon White did though.
Are they indie titles?
No. One-
Re-releases.
What's that?
Are they re-releases?
One of them is an old game and one of them was a new release.
Okay, the old game. What else?
The new release was also a third-party release. I'll give you that clue.
The
And
new game was the third.
It was a third-party
Mario
release, and we
Rabbids?
also definitely talked about it on content at one point. It wasn't on this show though.
Mario. Oh, we spoke about it on content, but it wasn't on this show.
You're
so
gonna
we played
kick
it
yourself because
probably
I
on
know you.
Steam
I
Deck.
know you know this game. The other one is an old game that got re-released, and I don't necessarily expect you guys to guess it because I didn't really know that it came to Switch this year.
And it's a new game that came out this year.
Number 5.
Did
is-
Vampire Survivors come to Switch?
No. I mean, I don't know if it did, but that's not it.
It's not Inscription.
No. It's a collection.
It's a collection. And it's not the
You're
Ninja
right
Turtles
there, bud.
collection.
You're so close. I like.
A collection of games. And we spoke about it this year. Did we get a review code for this collection?
No.
We did because we got the review code for the.
It was celebrating. It was celebrating an anniversary. I'm spoon feeding it to you, bro.
Good God, this is so hard. Why? Okay, so it's a collection. It came out last year to celebrate an anniversary. What I'm googling anniversaries. Okay, video game anniversary in 2022. Was it GoldenEye?
No. I'm gonna give you one more guess.
I gave
Okay.
up. I got no more. I got no more in the memory bank. I'm ready to be surprised.
No, GTA. Maybe?
Nope. Done.
Did that come out last year? No, it didn't, did it?
Okay, so at number 4, we had Nier Automata, the end of Yora edition. And then at number 5, we had Atari 50, the anniversary collection.
Fuck! No way that reviewed that high.
89 on Metacritic.
I need to get that game.
Nier also hit an 89. I don't know how they decided which one was, I guess whichever one had more reviews or something, but yeah, Atari 50.
Wow. Okay. I need to get Atari 50.
All right.
So there we go. Good job, everybody. You guys did good. You got the top 3. You got more than I thought you would.
Yay.
I figured you'd get Xenoblade.
Yeah.
You missed the high 5, Steve.
It's okay.
Just leave her hanging. So yeah, I figured you'd get Xenoblade, but I thought the other ones were all pretty tough to guess. So
when you said it was re-releases, Portal was like a dead giveaway. You know, I feel like that was, was a dead set.
You nailed it. I didn't guess that was the case. When I looked at it, I was like, Portal number 1, huh? Wow. Okay, cool. People sure like playing old games on Switch, huh?
People love Portal. It's such a good game. Really good game.
One of the best. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Not that Sierra and I would know, but one day maybe we'll figure it out.
Yes.
You like environmental puzzlers? I know you don't really, Pete.
I sure don't.
Do you, Sierra?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm very bad at puzzles. But
Me too.
I'm always down to try new things, so you know.
Portal's also like charming, right? Like it's got like there's a story, there's a mystery, there's things about it that I feel like you could get into even if, puzzles bother you.
Cool.
But we'll see. We'll get around to it one of these days.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us here in another episode of Nintendo Noise. If you want to write in and let us know, I don't know. Actually, I don't really know that there's anything you'd follow up on any of these stories. That's usually what I do here, right? I'm like, if you want to let us know what you want to switch.
Do you think Ubisoft is going to exist?
Do you think Ubisoft's going to exist?
Let us know in the comment.
Let us know.
What is your prediction of the Ubisoft implosion timeline?
I definitely...
Is this the end of the rabbits? Are they finally going to be dead?
It's gotta be, right? Like, I feel like it probably is, because I feel like their moment has passed. I feel like Ubisoft has said that they're doubling down on their major franchises. I don't think Rayman and the Rabbids cut it anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all just Dance from now on. That's it.
That underperformed too. Just Dance dead. It's gonna be done. It's gonna go away, I bet.
Should have kept releasing the Wii games. That's what they should have done. They stopped last year. No Wii release for the new Just Dance 2023, and that's what it was.
I gotta say, I think the thing that's so interesting, right, is for years I made fun of them because I'm like, every freaking Ubisoft E3 presentation, there's like a 5-minute Just Dance segment, and as soon as E3 went away, it died, right? Like I think people needed that segment every year to be reminded to go buy Just Dance. I really think that's what it was. Who's to say?
Yes, all the weird, strange dances and suits. That's what it was.
It was. It captivated people, Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Write in with something. Write in with a question for next week because I Fire Emblem's around the corner, but we could always use something new to talk about. All right, so hit us with your best Nintendo-related questions at questions@flipscreen.games. Come join the Discord where the conversation keeps rolling. However you choose to get involved, flipscreen.games is the place where you can find us. So thank you again for tuning in. For the crew, I've been Pete. She's been Sierra. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.
Sick.